Broken trust, silent scars. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply only to realize they never truly saw your pain? I never thought I would share this with anyone. For years, I carried my hurt quietly, thinking that keeping it inside was the only way to survive. I became an expert at hiding tears behind forced smiles and reassuring everyone I was fine. Then I met him, and for the first time I felt seen, or at least I wanted to believe I was seen. We met by chance on a summer afternoon, two lonely souls colliding on a busy street far from home. I was an international student, half a world away from my family, and he was the first familiar warmth I found in this foreign city. He approached me under a cafe awning just as the rain began to fall. We talked for hours that day, sharing stories and laughter over warm coffee. In him, I saw a gentle curiosity and kindness that I hadn't felt in years. As weeks turned into months, he became my closest confidant. Late one night, under a quiet blanket of stars, I opened up about the wounds I usually kept hidden. I told him about the childhood nights filled with muffled sobs after my father abandoned us, and the weight of responsibility I carried ever since. My voice shook as I confessed how small and broken I sometimes felt. He listened in silence, then pulled me close and whispered, "You're safe with me. I'll never turn away from your pain." In that moment, I believed him. I remember exhaling years of pent-up heartache, thinking maybe, just maybe, I had finally found someone who wouldn't flinch at my scars. Our love story moved faster than I ever imagined. When he asked me to move in with him, it felt like the world finally giving me a chance at happiness. I remember packing my life into 2 suitcases, heart pounding with equal parts excitement and fear. I left behind my childhood home and even a job offer back home, all because I trusted him when he said we'd build a life together. His apartment became my new world, a small 1-bedroom on the 5th floor with a leaky faucet and windows that overlooked a busy street. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like home because he was there. At first, everything seemed beautiful. We'd cook dinner together, me introducing him to the spicy curries of my hometown and him teaching me his grandmother's stew recipe. We'd dance in the kitchen to old songs, our socks skidding on the wooden floor, laughing like children. Those nights, I would lie in his arms feeling that maybe all the loneliness, all the silent suffering had led me to this, to him. I started to hope that the universe was finally done punishing me. But as the seasons changed, small cracks began to appear. He started working longer hours, or so he said, and coming home well past midnight with barely a word. On some nights, I'd find him scrolling through his phone with a guilty look he couldn't quite hide. I told myself I was imagining things, that my past was making me paranoid. I tried to be the understanding partner. After all, I was the one still struggling to find work in a new country, leaning on him for so much. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or clingy. So I swallowed my doubts and kept those late-night dinners warm for him, alone at our little table set for 2. The distance between us grew in ways I couldn't ignore. When I was anxious or homesick, he no longer had the patience to listen. Once, I broke down sobbing after a video call with my mom. I hadn't been home in over a year, and the homesickness hit me hard. He awkwardly patted my back and then sighed, muttering, "I can't deal with this right now," before walking out to get some air. I sat there on the kitchen floor after he left, my chest heaving with sobs, feeling more alone than I ever did before I met him. The one person I thought understood my pain was turning his back when I needed him most. The betrayal didn't happen all at once. It was a series of little heartbreaks that led to the final blow. I started noticing the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts, faint but unmistakable. There were hushed phone calls he'd take in the other room, voices lowered and tense. Every time I asked if something was wrong, he'd snap, telling me I was imagining things again. I began to doubt my own senses, wondering if my trauma was making me unlovable and crazy like he implied. I even apologized for being too emotional, trying to fix whatever I was doing wrong to push him away. Then one rainy evening, my world finally shattered. I had made his favorite dinner, slow-cooked stew, hoping to cheer him up after another distant week. He never showed. Worried, I grabbed my umbrella and went out to find him. Something in my gut led me to the little pub around the corner where he often went. Through the window I saw him. He was at a corner table, lips pressed against another woman's, in a kiss that made my heart drop. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sight was a dagger twisting in my chest, confirming every fear I had tried to ignore. My hands went cold, and the umbrella slipped from my grasp, rain soaking me as I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the person I loved share intimacy with someone else. I don't remember pushing through the pub door, but suddenly I was inside, rain-drenched and trembling. I found myself standing at their table, facing them. He jumped up, shock written all over his face. The woman looked between us, eyes wide. I managed to whisper, "How could you?" My voice barely came out, but my question hung in the air like a thunderclap. He didn't have an answer, or maybe nothing he could say would have mattered. His eyes, once so soft and full of promise, were now clouded with guilt. In that crushing moment, I realized the man who swore he'd never turn away from my pain had become the source of it. I wish I could say I screamed or threw the steaming bowl of stew I'd brought right at him. Something, anything to match the explosion of pain inside me, but I just went completely silent. It was as if my body shut down to protect me from feeling any more. I turned around and walked out, back into the storm. The rain was relentless, but I barely felt it as I wandered through the streets. I felt hollow, like a ghost drifting through a life that wasn't mine. I ended up at the park where he and I once slow danced under the moonlight when we first fell in love. That memory hit me like a punch to the gut. I collapsed onto a bench, drenched to the bone, and finally let out a wail that echoed into the empty darkness. In that desolate midnight park, I cried until no sound came out, until my tears ran dry and only a dull, aching numbness remained. The days after were a blur of anguish and isolation. He tried to call me at first, then sent a few texts apologizing, claiming he never meant to hurt me. I couldn't even bring myself to respond. What was there to say? Nothing could undo what I saw. I stopped eating regularly, and dark shadows settled under my eyes. I avoided calls from my family, too ashamed to admit how completely I had been broken. I had entrusted him with my heart, my history, my hopes, and he left me in a pile of shattered pieces. One night, I found myself on the bathroom floor, back against the cold tile wall, a bottle of sleeping pills clutched in my hand. My whole body trembled as I poured a few pills into my palm, tears streaming down my face. I was so tired of betrayals, tired of feeling like I was never enough, tired of waking up to pain. In that moment, I truly wondered if the world would be better off without my broken self in it. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at those pills through blurred vision, imagining the relief of never having to hurt again. And then, through the fog of despair, an image of my mother appeared in my mind, her gentle smile as she waved goodbye to me at the airport, telling me to be brave in this new life. She had already lost so much. The thought of her getting a call that her daughter was gone because of a broken heart, I couldn't do it to her. I let the pills fall from my fingers, hearing them scatter on the tile like distant raindrops. I curled up on that floor and sobbed until I had no tears left. But I was still here, hurt, shattered, but alive. In the weeks that followed, surviving became a day-by-day battle. I forced myself to eat a piece of toast in the morning, even when it tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I stepped outside each day, even if just to breathe in the cold morning air on the balcony. Each small act was a victory, a defiance against the despair that wanted to pull me under. I began scribbling in a journal wearily, at first just pouring out rage and sorrow in jagged lines. Over time, those pages started to reflect something else too, the faintest glimmers of hope. I wrote about the little accomplishments, finishing a book, taking a short walk by the river, answering my mother's call without breaking down. Slowly, I was stitching myself back together, thread by fragile thread. Therapy helped more than I expected. In that safe space, I unpacked not just his betrayal, but years of hurt I had buried long before he ever came into my life. I confronted the ache of my father's abandonment, the years I spent feeling unworthy of love, and how desperately I had latched onto the first person who showed me kindness. My therapist's gentle questions guided me to painful truths and eventually healing revelations. I realized that as much as his betrayal devastated me, it also forced me to finally face myself. I was more than just a collection of broken pieces waiting for someone else to fix. I started to see a glimmer of the person I could become, someone who could stand on her own, scars and all. Healing wasn't linear. Some mornings I'd wake up and for a split second I'd forget everything, and those were the sweetest few seconds before reality rushed back in. Other days, the weight of it all made it hard to even get out of bed. But bit by bit, I reclaimed small joys. I started jogging in the mornings to clear my head. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore where the smell of books and the quiet chatter of customers gave me comfort. I even made a friend there, a kind woman a few years older than me who sensed my sadness and never pried, only offered company. Piece by piece, I was discovering that life still existed outside of the pain. It's been over a year now since that rainy night when my world fell apart. I won't lie. There are still nights I wake up from nightmares of betrayal, heart pounding, the image of him with that other woman flashing in my mind. But those nights are fewer now. More often, I sleep peacefully. The silence no longer something to fear, but a space where I can hear my own thoughts and not be afraid of them. I have learned that trust betrayed does not mean I am broken beyond repair. It means I was brave enough to love deeply and strong enough to survive when that love was taken away. Every scar I carry, the silent ones on my heart and the invisible ones on my soul, tells a story of resilience. I share my story not because it's unique, but because I know somewhere out there someone is sitting on the bathroom floor in tears, feeling completely alone in their pain. I want them to know they aren't alone. Pain can isolate us, make us feel like we're the only ones in the world hurting this badly. But it's not true. There are so many of us quietly carrying our scars, just waiting for someone to say, I see you and I understand. If you've gone through something like this, your story deserves to be told. You don't have to hide your pain or pretend you're okay when you're not. Send it to us. Share it anonymously or with your name, whatever feels right. Silent scars exists, so no pain stays silent.